That's what I get for doing ground shipping, am I right?
It's been a while. It's been like a whole month. This is the longest time I've spent between games, and honestly, it's probably only gonna get longer. These games just get bigger. It's dark though. As you can see, it's a little dark out here. I put on a little high contrast lighting here because Final Fantasy VI is a doozy. It's really a little bit different than what we played before, and really it's regarded as one of the best games ever. Many people put this game on such a high pedestal. Literally the best. The best! I know 7 has that kind of but that's like the normie best. Real Final Fantasy fans, they're like, no, 6. It's 6. It's 6 all the way. Is that true? First thing, and maybe for the last time, I have to discuss naming. Yes, this was the last game to have the very weird, strange, Japanese, American, different numbers thing. This was called Final Fantasy III in the US, but from 7 on, the names aligned perfectly. It was 7 and 7, so this is it. So what's so different about Final Fantasy VI? Why did it change the lives of so many gamers who just picked up a new RPG and was just like, whoa, what happened? Why is this so emotional? Well, there you go. That's the key. It's emotional. The story goes places that video games haven't really gone before this. And we'll get to that a little. The main thing you see right off the bat, the opening shot of war mechs slowly marching through the snowy mountains. It really sets the tone super nicely for the rest of the game. The crystal dynamic. Collecting the crystals, stopping the enemy from collecting them all to kill the world or whatever, that's gone. They said, that was kind of tired, we did that enough, and yeah, in 5 it very much was tired. It was getting over it. 5 story wasn't bad, like I said, but it was time to try something new, and boy, they did it. Final Fantasy VI is set in an industrial age where magic kind of no longer exists. It's a main plot point that magic is gone, but the main character can use it. The Empire is slowly taking over. These giant mechs are powered by magic that they sap from ancient creatures called espers that are mostly frozen in ice. That's the first one we see. They're gone from a bygone age. The War of the Magi ended long ago, and we are now in this dystopian era where the Empire kind of controls everything. People aren't really living so well, and they just want to keep growing power and be rid of the magic. Right off the bat, if you heard me explain any of the stories of the previous games, you're like, oh wow, this is an actual story. And like I said, the main character starts off in the Empire, brainwashed into helping them, but she escapes and makes all these friends, and they become a part of the rebel. The underground rebels seems to be a theme in Final Fantasy, underground rebels who are trying to stop the big bad guy. And yes, the main character is a girl. Wow, good one. 6 games in, we got a main character girl. Except she's not super the main character, because this game is based off of switching characters all around, and it tries to focus on most of them individually. But she's kind of the main character. There's a wide variety of characters playable in this game, which blends into how the gameplay works this time around, the little gimmick that they got. No more job system, which, as I said, really enjoyed in 5. I thought it was perfected in 5. It was so fun, it's so satisfying. So they're gonna have to sell me hard to get this gameplay, this new gimmick that they got going. This is more or less based on what we did in 4. You have a party, and they swap out as the story goes, and you just do what you do. This game, when you get party members, you kind of have them. And it's a little bit like Pokemon, where you got some in the box, and you can swap them out. Of course, there's not 150 characters. There's like 12, which is kind of a lot though for Final Fantasy. They got their own special abilities, their own level, their own magic that they learn, and so on. It's a lot to manage. You got Terra, Magic Girl. You got Sabin, the fighter, who, I should say, each class pushes their gimmick farther in this game. So the fighter, the monk, punching guy, you actually do fighting game inputs to select specific attacks that he does, which is a really cool idea. You can do like a half circle when you want to do that, full circle for his like super attack. Fun, but doesn't freaking work. It doesn't work half the time, I swear to God. This is what I'm dealing with. Normal ass D-pad. I'm doing like, okay, you gotta do full circle starting with the right, okay. I do it like slowly sometimes to make sure I hit everything. Sometimes it just doesn't work, man. He was my strongest character and I used him the whole game, but like, that was so annoying. Then you got Cyan. You got the samurai guy whose special ability is like he just waits. Like, you know, it's the active battle system, so it's based on waiting and selecting characters to attack at the right time. So his ability is that you have to wait on him. You just have to stare at him long enough, and if you stare at him very long, he will do a super attack. But of course, the payoff is you're wasting time. It was kind of cool. I liked him. You got tons of different characters. Any job you can think of, like all the main jobs, represented pretty well with each of these characters, but magic's a little different. There aren't really any magic-based jobs in this because the magic is part of what you can customize in this. It's not a job system like 5, but we have espers. As I mentioned, they're part of the story. There's few left, the Empire's hunting them down. Sometimes you get them. And espers are things that you equip to party members to increase a certain stat upon leveling. So you'll have an esper that like increases strength at each level. You give that to Sabin, he's a beast. But they also allow you to learn magic, and this is the only way to learn magic. Any character can do it. They got stats, some will be better at it than others, but anyone can do it. So this kind of works a little bit like Final Fantasy 2. Not a good thing. If you're working with 4 party members, you can put 4 espers each, and if they gain the magic from that esper, you can swap it out with a new one, right? But you're not dealing with 4 party members, you're dealing with 12 over time. And it's a lot to manage. On top of that, you have relics, which are basically like, instead of an accessory slot, you have 2 relic slots. These relics give you more abilities to your character. So it's like, there's no job system, but you have like, your character has a special ability, your esper can give you special magic, and your relic can give you an additional ability, and kind of mash them together and get yourself some sort of unique job yourself. That's the idea. That makes up for the lack of customization you might expect. It's interesting. I'm gonna get to it. I want to explain a little more about the story. You got Edgar, who's like a pristine prince, brother of Sabin. So they're like opposites. Sabin's like a jokester. He's like a womanizer, kind of pedophile. And then you got, the Sid update coming at you. Sid update. He's back again. He's dressed in like a banana suit. He's not a playable character. He works for the Empire. Which, disappointing. Like, Sid, how could you do that to us? I don't think he realized what he was doing, but he was helping them make robots and stuff like that. He doesn't make the airship this time. Setzer makes the airship. Or, no, I think he stole it. So Sid doesn't really do anything. He's barely in this game. A little disappointed. Maybe the worst Sid. I mean, his role in 5 was so important, and in this one, he's just kind of there. But he gets a critical moment, which I will explain later. The game starts with 2 named characters that you never see again, Biggs and Wedge, which I know those are characters in 7, I'm pretty sure. So, is that a new tradition? Are they starting Biggs and Wedge? Are going to be warrior soldier people going along? We'll find out. So those are most of the characters, and then you have Kefka. In the very last review, I said, tired of these faceless monster villains. Give me a real villain that I care about. Kefka is the antithesis of X-Death from 5. X-Death is just this brooding soldier who wants to kill everything, and he's like, look at me, I'm so threatening because my name is X-Death. Kefka's a clown. Literally. He's a clown. He's the Joker. It's weird though, his goals are not that different. He's pure chaotic evil. He is just a clown. One of the most iconic sound bites in gaming history, his laugh. He's just a maniac. And there's other villains too, but they're small scale. I think at some point there's like a main villain who's not Kefka, and you're like, Kefka's the main villain, isn't he? And you're like, yeah, he probably is. I mean, he's famous at this point. You probably know about Kefka. And I'm here to say he's great. I loved him. Easily the best villain. He's the funniest villain because, you know, he's still a clown. He's a goofball. He's trying to order around people, and they're like, I don't know, should we listen to this guy? He's a clown, and then he gets angry with them. You know, he's the funniest villain and the scariest villain. It's all about presentation. And that's what I'm saying. These other games, they didn't have a story that reaches? They don't have a story that reaches the level of 6. I care about this villain, and I mean, like, he's evil and I want to destroy him. But also, he's very entertaining. That's the perfect villain. The specific emotional story beats and the cool villain and all the characters with real personalities, that's probably what hit everybody in the face when they played this game the first time. Like, whoa! Because remember, this is like 94. This is before gaming's got cinematic. This is probably the most cinematic game to ever come out at that point. And I'm not counting the freaking Sega CD, that doesn't count. And they really go for that presentation as well. This one shoves Mode 7 right in your face. I mean, the first time you get on a chocobo, it's not top down. It's like a third person view, and you're walking on the overfield, and there's supposed to be this big mind-blowing moment like, look what graphics can do now. But I accidentally pressed B, like as soon as it happened, which makes me hop off, and the chocobo ran away, and I totally missed out on that cool first time experience. But they do the Mode 7 thing with the airship as well. Here's the thing. I don't know where I'm going in Mode 7. I don't know the land. Third person, you're just like flying forward and there's the land below you, and I'm like, dude, all the towns are just a house on the map. I don't know where I'm going. So that's a little problem. Wouldn't be as much of a problem if there was a map. There's no map. There's a mini map. A gray, pathetic block in the corner of the screen. That's all you get for a map. What? Dude, I'm playing... This is like the third time this game come out. I'm playing on the Game Boy Advance. They didn't think to add a map for 3 times? Are you out of your mind? And I read online, the original game came with a physical map that you open up and see for yourself. That's so cool. But include that with this. The original release of the Game Boy Advance didn't come with a map in any way. How do you overlook that? I hope the Pixel Remaster has a map, because that was a pain in my goddamn ass. I never knew where I was going. Even the walkthrough that I would look up is like, go to Zozo. Where's Zozo? Oh, it's right by Kolingen. Thanks, man. I'll head over to Kolingen. I don't know what that is. I don't know. 5 had a map. The PS1 versions of 1 and 2 that I played had a map. I don't want to dwell on it, but geez. Let's dive into the gameplay because I got some opinions. I got some hot takes. So as I said, you switch between full characters. You unlock them as you go. They join your party. And most of the time you can swap them in and out and choose the ones that you want. Except for when there's like very specific story beats that have to happen. And they're like, oh yeah, make sure you take this one with you. You have to. Oh, okay, I guess. And you're like, all right, something's gonna happen. Espers, they are all the customization. They're like all the complexity of this game. Mostly. There's relics too, but at the end of the day, those are equipable items with a little bit of an effect. Espers are the magic you learn the different stats that you may gain as bonus, and they are summons as well. You can only summon one guy, whoever Esper you have equipped. Really underwhelming. I don't think I ever summoned anybody except for just to see like the animation. I never legitimately used a summon. So there was like no reason for me, because I never know. I equipped Espers based on what magic I want him to learn. I never looked at the summon, so I never thought, oh yeah, that this would be a good time to use that. So that fell over my head. Disappointed in that. And here's the main thing with relics and Espers. It's like a shoehorned way to customize your characters, and it wouldn't be a super big deal if you didn't have to manage 12. Here's my big complaint. So much of this game is unequipping relics and re-equipping relics, checking on your Esper because there's no way to track if you've learned the magic from them yet unless you go into the menus. Stupid. Again, this is the third time the game came out. You couldn't like get a better way to do that. It gets very tedious as you go on. Don't want to spend that much time in the menu. But like, there's also characters that I very much prefer over others. There are characters, like I said, there's 12 and you get some of them pretty late in the game, and I'm like, I don't want to use the 12th guy. I'm sorry. He's not that exciting, and I've been training these other guys. I don't want to use this one. Sorry. But there are certain dungeons in this game you have to do 2 parties. And ideally, this is when everything in the game culminates and you're like, okay, these characters that synergize well together, I'll make that party, and they go in at the same time. And that's fun. Like, there's little puzzles you solve with 2 people. But you're gonna have an under-leveled team. I don't see how you can't. One dungeon in this game, you have to have 3 party members. Do the math. Okay, there's 2 extra. There's 14. There's not 12. Sorry, I made that mistake. There's 14 characters. And there's one required dungeon where you have to have 3 parties. It's the only one that you need 3. And I'm like, dog, I don't have that many characters that I've focused on. I got my main 4 that I really liked. Mostly stuck with them. Was that a mistake? Because my third party was ass. My third party was like the misfits, the rejects I didn't want to use, but I have to now. And they're like tripping through this dungeon and they don't know what to do with themselves. And there's 3, and I want to train this guy with the same Esper that I'm using for the other party. So, but he's already have it, so I have to switch to that party, unequip him, switch back, re-equip him, do the thing I want to do, and then, okay, now I have to switch to the next party and use them. So then I have to, oh wait, I gotta go back to that party and unequip that Esper so this guy can have it. So everybody's training and getting the magic that they need at the right... no. Too much re-equipping. Too much. Look, there's 2 relics per character. There's 4 characters per party. That's 8. There's 3 parties. So 8 times 3 is what, 24? 24 items that you're flipping around to each other at all times during any dungeon where you need to swap parties, or any moments in the game where you're required to use a character you don't want. The main guy character, Locke, is just a thief. He can steal items from enemies. That's it. He doesn't have like super combos like Sabin. He doesn't have the waiting samurai sword of power that Cyan does. He's just like a guy. I don't want to use him. I never wanted to use Locke, but he was a main character, so I kept having to. And it was so annoying. I watched a lot of reviews before my review just to see, like, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And it's like, everybody just called this game perfect. Perfection. One of the best games of all time. Just like, guys, there's some issues here. One review I watched said it can be a little frustrating to have to switch around so much and so many items and everything, but the good news is that's optional. It's literally not. He's saying, like, I guess the game is pretty easy. It's easy enough to not worry about equipping every character with the right thing. But that's not an excuse. I don't want to not have my characters not grow as well as they could. I'm not gonna not equip an Esper to the guy. I'm not gonna ignore the fact that my party can be better when it sucks. Like, I'm getting through the fights, but I'm barely getting through the fights. And you know, the gameplay is not the only thing that's bogged down by this party swapping mechanic. There are points in the game where you're not required to use certain characters. You're on your own and you can fully customize all four, whoever's going on the journey. But that means if the story's continuing, the characters will not be developing. Like, I'm using a whole party that's completely different from any other player. And it's cool that you can customize, but the story is now going to suffer because no character arcs can happen. You'll be playing as somebody different than another person. You can't have Tara do something crazy that affects her emotional arc because she might not even be here. So when you talk to somebody in one of these quests, you don't even have a name on your dialogue box. You don't even have a picture. It's just a box with text, and it says whatever. It says something generic that won't be too personified because it can be said by any of the party members. That's pretty lame. I just feel like the gimmick they went for affected the gameplay and the story in negative ways, and you didn't need it to. I think they just committed too hard to this premise. All I'm saying is, 5 might not have as emotional a story, but I'm always gonna remember Butts, because he was the guy and he was always there, and his name is Butts. But I'm always gonna remember Lena. I'm always gonna remember Ferris. Always gonna remember Galuf. I did remember. Because those 4 were a crew, and they stuck with you to the end, and anything that happened was because of them. This game has 14 characters, and they're trying to make them all work and do their own thing, and I didn't really like it. One final complaint. They're starting to get very, very cocky with these animations, and battles are taking a long time. Sabin has these combos that are really cool, but you gotta watch the whole animation. Like I said, Cyan's ability is that he literally just waits. Battles are taking too long, enemies have long animations. I feel like this is gonna be a thing going forward. There's like flashy animations that you can't skip, and it's like, alright, I've seen them. Can you give me an option to stop those at some point or something like Pokemon does that? Again, this is the 3rd time this game came out, and there's still no option for that. Hopefully in the Pixel Remaster. But yeah, those are like my grievances, okay? That's it. This game's really cool, it's worth playing, there's a lot of great individual moments. Like, the opera scene. The opera scene is one of the most famous scenes. One of the most iconic. I loved it. You literally have to, like, it's a whole heist that you're planning essentially, and you gotta disguise yourself as actors in the play, and you have to memorize lines. There's a point in the game where you actually read a book and gotta memorize what you have to do. It's like, I love when they do stuff like that. It really immerses you in the game, and it's super fun. Also, like, wow. I know Toby Fox loved this game because, yikes, there's so much that he took from this. Yeah, I don't want to spoil, like, any particular moments, but you do fight the 3 Stooges. Sorry, I just spoiled it. You fight the 3 Stooges. They don't even hide it. It's not even like a clever reference. It's like, I'm Burly. I'm Joe. There's just the 3 Stooges, and you kill them. But I gotta talk about spoilers for this one. Let's do it. Spoiler alert, skip to this part. I gotta close this door. That dead guy's still on the floor. That's weird. So, story culminates in a point where you're fighting on this floating continent. I'm about to describe what's probably the moment, the very singular moment, that this game hit a home run with everybody who played it as a kid. And I know why. You lose. The bad guy wins at a point in the game. That's not something that happens in video games at this point. Or like movies. You know, like that's something that rarely happens even today. The bad guy, and I know it's not the end of the game or anything, so you do it later, but like, that's huge. And it punches you in the gut when it happens. Even I'm playing this in 2021, and I still was like, whoa, that happened. At this point, there's 2 villains, Kefka and the Emperor guy. and they're both differently evil. But Kefka is like, no, you disagree with me? And then he goes crazy, and like, they're still 2D little sprites, but they do go far with the animation when they can. He like kicks the guy. It's an old man. He like throws him to the ground. He's like, we should stop doing this. And he like kicks him. And he's like going so hard on this guy. And he like takes all the god statue things, I forget what they're called, the warring triad. And he rises up, and you see a picture of the world, and it starts exploding and everything. It's like, we have to stop him. And you're running and running on these floating continents. And he goes like, no. He like throws everybody off, and it's just like, oh god, oh. 1 year later, and the world is a totally different world. Apocalyptic. Barren wasteland. You wake up as one character from the 14. And you're just like, what's going on? That moment is like, it hits you. It's, like I said, it's the moment of Final Fantasy VI. It's the very reason I feel like people hold this so high. And it doesn't stop there. Sid is here. Sid update. He's taking care of you. He's like, oh, you're finally awake. And then he goes like, yeah, great, because I need that bed. I'm like, I'm like sick. Can you like go get me fish? And you just go out, and you realize you're on this island away from everything. You can't go anywhere. So you go to the shore, you get fish, you bring it back. He goes like, oh, that tastes good. Yeah, I like that. Be nice if you could get me more. You just keep getting fish, and you go up to him and try to feed it to him, and it just like, he doesn't answer. He's gone. It's like, damn, Sid's dead? No. And I found out later, he doesn't have to die. You could actually save him if you're fast enough and you get the right fish. Are you kidding me? There's like, oh, the fish that's moving fastest, that's the good fish. You don't want to get the slow fish. Dude, come on. Sid died on my watch. It's a death. It's a permadeath. There's a point in the game where you can permanently lose a party member and not have him for the rest of the game. That stuff happens, and it's like cool. It's actually better for the story that Sid dies, though, because you miss out, if he lives, on this whole scene of Celeste, the character who's raised by Sid, sees him dead, and he's just like, I don't know what to do. There's a whole sequence where she like climbs a tower, and it harkens back to the opera scene. It's like, it plays the music, I'm pretty sure, and she like throws herself off, and it's like, what is happening in this Nintendo game? You know what I'm saying? That's everything. That middle part was the whole thing. It's wonderful. And the rest of the game is an open world, point to point. You gotta find all of the rest of your team who you haven't seen in a year and might be dead. That's cool. That's very cool. I love that. And the whole time I was thinking like, oh man, if this got a remake in the style of 7, that middle point would be the ending of the first game, and then they would do like a part 2 where it's the rest, which would be sick. Oh my god, do that. I have some slight issues, because basically what this is a Breath of the Wild style game. Kefka's tower is right there. You only have one character. I mentioned before the 3-party dungeon that's required. That's the final dungeon. I didn't want to say that, but now you know because you're watching this part. So you only have one character. You need at least 3, and it's not possible to do it with 3 anyway. So you need like most of the characters back. You don't know where they are. It doesn't guide you or anything. It's fun, and you get to see what each character has been up to and how they've changed. But this is the end of story. You know how people complain about the Breath of the Wild story where there's like not one? At this point in the game, there's not one, because you have to do everything yourself and go on your own quest. And then you go to the final dungeon, and basically you just beat Kefka. Like, the second half of the game is storyless, essentially. So I don't know how I feel about that, because the payoff in Breath of the Wild is the gameplay. and the discovery and all that stuff. And I don't want to compare this game to that, but the gameplay that you benefit from not having that story is mostly annoying with the re-equipping and stuff that I explained earlier, so I didn't think it was that good of a payoff, because the little episodes that you see, some characters have interesting stories going for them. Like Tara discovers this dead town with just kids and becomes their mom, but this other girl, Realm, is just kind of painting somewhere for an old man. She's getting paid to paint. Oh, congratulations. Can you come with me to the final dungeon? And that final dungeon with the 3 different parties, that's when it really settles in. Oh god, this is so tedious. I gotta equip everybody. I literally have not used in my third party, I had the heroes, which I kind of tried to split into the second party, but I couldn't split them into the third. So the third was just mostly the rest that I didn't care about and barely ever used a single time the whole game. Now I was able to get through it. Like I said, the game's not that hard, but doesn't matter. It was so annoying regardless. And you get to Kefka's lair after all that, the final boss, and it's cool. It's so good. As you might expect, he turns into this natural organic beast monster thing with different humans on him, and it's how did he turn into that? Who knows? But it's a Final Fantasy final boss, so whatever. And you don't notice it at first, but his whole model goes up past the screen. You don't even see it. And then you beat that part, and the screen just scrolls up, and you're at a new part of this giant being that still goes up more. And you're like, how big is this guy? How long is this fight? And the people who died, whoever passed out in that fight, gone. New party member swaps in, a random one from your whole squad that you brought in. And I complained a lot about the party system, but that's cool. So you just see this thing goes on forever, and your party members are dying, new guys are coming in, it's oh god, I hate that character, but oh, you're part of the team, let's go, let's beat him. Keep Tara alive. She's the one who knows all the cool spells that I trained this whole game. Keep her alive for God's sakes, because if we die, we're going all the way back down. It's just everybody's working together. It all comes together so well. There's 4 or 5 different forms that you climb all the way to the top of, and then you kill them, and half your team is dead, and you're just we did it. That was so good. Oh man, so I talked for so much that the sun went down, but let's wrap this up, huh? I had my complaints. I think overall, in a nutshell, the high points of this game are very high, but I can't ignore the middle, where it kind of sags. In my opinion, the gameplay can be pretty tedious with the long animations, the equipping, and the party swapping, and the this and that, and the story sometimes suffers from it. It's not that big a complaint, but man, this game's not perfect. I'm sorry, it's not. Part of me likes the simplified Final Fantasy IV style better, where you just kind of have your guys and you do it, and you don't waste time. There's something to be said about not overcomplicating things. I'm not saying it's bad to give players customizability. I'm saying it could be done better. It was done better in 5. But what am I going to say, right? It's still a must play. It's a required play. If you're a gamer, I said in the spoiler section, but remake this. Remake this! Oh god, I now see why everybody complains about how 7 gets way too much attention. How come that has 50 games and 4 has a sequel, 5 even has that movie, 6 has nothing. This is all the legacy of Final Fantasy VI, this one game. That's a shame. This game needs to be remade in the style of FF7 Remake. It just needs to. And this was the swan song of Final Fantasy on SNES. I mean, it ended on a pretty good note. The only significant dates that come after this one, between 7, I was born. I've now played every Final Fantasy game that precedes my life, which is not even half of them. You know what the next game is. This is a game that changed lives, caused an everlasting legacy, was widely regarded to this day as one of the greatest JRPGs, nay, the greatest video games of all time. Of course, I'm talking about Chrono Trigger. And then they made Final Fantasy VII after that, which we'll be reviewing next. So tune into that. Who's that?